If you've spent any amount of time in the wood shop, you know how much dust sucks. So today I want to cover a few small shop solutions that I've used and show you how they measure up. So let's get started. So let's first talk about the different types of dust solutions you might use in your shop. Now you have dust collectors, which move a high volume of air under low pressure, and you have things like dust extractors and shop vacs that move a low volume of air under high pressure. What that really means is the larger that your pipes and your motor are, the more dust you can move. But with that great power usually comes a great expense. So today we're going to focus on the dust extractor and the shop vac and how those work with some cyclones. Now measuring dust collection efficiency can get really mathematically complicated, and I'm no beautiful mind like Russell Crowe. But basically we want to look at the volume of air that each of these can move and how much material they're capable of collecting. So let's start out by getting a baseline for our shop vac and our dust extractor, and then we'll add a couple of cyclones to them and see how they affect the airflow. And again, I'm no scientist, but I'll do my best to keep things accurate.
So for the test, I'll be using a 2.5 inch by 8 foot hose, a 1.5 inch by 7 foot hose, and a 1.25 inch by 11.5 foot Festool hose, as these are the most common sizes that I have in my shop. And to measure the CFM, I'm using an anemometer set to the corresponding hose. So we'll kick things off with the shop vac. Here I'm testing the 2.5 inch by 8 foot hose, which is the largest hose I'll be testing today, and really the largest hose that these machines should use. And I gotta say that the shop vac really impressed me here because it came in with an initial score of 194 CFM. Well played, shop vac. From there it was on to our dust extractor, and with the 2.5 inch by 8 foot hose, the dust extractor put up a score of 158 CFM, which is well below our shop vac, but that's not really a surprise here, and we'll get into that in a minute. Next up was the 1.5 inch hose on the shop vac, which came in at a pretty underwhelming average of 29 CFM. Here's where the dust extractor started to make up some ground, because it came in with a CFM of 36 for the 1.5 inch hose, which is well above our shop vac. And last but not least was our Festool hose, which came in at 24 CFM on our shop vac, which again was kind of a surprise. Our dust extractor then countered the shop vac with an impressive score of 35 CFM. It's almost like they were made for each other. Alright, so let's check out how these numbers compare. Again, with the 2.5 inch hose, the shop vac had 194 CFM, which was the highest recorded. Then, with our 1.5 inch hose, we could start seeing that the dust extractor started pulling away from the shop vac. And again, that was repeated with our smaller 1.25 inch hose. So it seems like the shop vac is better for larger hoses, while the dust extractor is better for smaller ones.
All right, so now that we've got our baseline, let's go ahead and test our first shop solution, which is just a 5-gallon bucket with one of these cyclones attached. And for all these tests, I'm going to be using the same hose so that there's not any discrepancy between the different hoses. And the only thing we're changing is the cyclones themselves. To get this one to attach to this cyclone, I'm gonna have to use a little duct tape, but I'll make sure to seal it up nice.
So with our control hose connected to our shop vac and to our bucket, the 2.5 inch hose on the shop vac came in with 138 CFM. And then surprisingly, the dust extractor came in with a score of 128 CFM, even though this is the larger 2.5 inch hose. With the 1.5 inch hose on the shop vac, we saw a pretty significant drop down to 23 CFM, which is a loss of 6 CFM from our control. While the shop vac struggled, the dust extractor stayed pretty consistent here with an average CFM of 33, which is 10 CFM greater than our shop vac. Again, we saw the shop vac struggle with the smaller 1.25 inch diameter hose, resulting in an average CFM of just 22. The dust extractor held strong with an average of 30 CFM on our 5-gallon bucket, which was a loss of 5 CFM from our control. Alright, time for the numbers. So our 2.5 inch hose saw the largest decrease on our shop vac at 29%, dropping from 194 to 138. But with the 1.5 inch hose, our dust extractor saw the least amount of decrease at only 8%. Then over at the 1.25 inch hose, the shop vac had its lowest performance at 22 CFM. So with the 5-gallon bucket cyclone attached, we can start to see that the shop vac has an average decrease of 19.3%, while the dust extractor has an average decrease of just 13.6%.
Our next small shop solution is a 14-gallon drum. Now this 14-gallon drum has the same cyclone that's attached to the 5-gallon bucket, but obviously can hold more material. So let's see if that makes any difference on the airflow.
So the drum had some pretty interesting results. But again, starting at the 2.5 inch hose on the shop vac, we came in at 137 CFM. Then moving over to our dust extractor, we had the CFM come in at 126, which were both pretty similar to the 5-gallon bucket. The 1.5 inch hose came in at 26 CFM, which again is only a loss of 1 from the bucket, so not too bad. However, once the dust extractor was hooked up to the barrel, it started deforming, so our 1.5 inch hose only managed to pull 32 CFM. And once we swapped in our smaller 1.25 inch hose, the barrel had really deformed, and the shop vac was only able to pull 21 CFM. That same 21 CFM was repeated by the dust extractor, which indicates to me that the barrel crushing obviously has a huge impact. Alright, so let's see how the drum did overall. With the 2.5-inch hose, the drum did about the same as the 5-gallon bucket, with only about 1 CFM difference between the two. The shop vac actually did a little bit better with the 1.5-inch hose on the barrel, seeing a decrease of only 10%. With the 1.25-inch hose, we saw the numbers skewed quite a bit due to the fact that the barrel crushed, and I think you can see that pretty heavily here in the graph. But in any case, the shop vac saw an average decrease of 17.3%, while the dust extractor saw a decrease of 23.6%. Again, this is heavily due to the barrel crushing, but those are the numbers.
All right, so last up I have the Dust Deputy 2.5 by Oneida. Now this one has the 2.5-inch ports, so I don't have to worry about taping in any adapters to make sure my hoses fit. Plus it has a 10-gallon steel barrel, so I don't have to worry about collapsing like I do on the 14-gallon barrel, and I don't have to double up any buckets like I do on the 5-gallon bucket. But ultimately we want to test out what the airflow is like from this, so let's see how it performs.
So right off the bat, the Dust Deputy came in throwing haymakers, recording our highest CFM for any of our cyclones at the 2.5-inch hose at 160. The dust extractor then shared a similar result, having a CFM of 152, which is really impressive given that our control is 158. From there, the punches kept coming, with the shop vac recording a score of 28 CFM for the 1.5-inch hose. Not to be outdone, the dust extractor put up a score of 35 CFM, and it should be noted that both of these numbers are only one of our control. At the smaller hose size, both the shop vac and the dust extractor put up the exact same numbers as the control, with the shop vac at 24 CFM and the dust extractor maintaining its consistency with 35 CFM. So the Dust Deputy had some pretty impressive numbers, with a 2.5-inch hose showing a minimal amount of loss across both the dust extractor and the shop vac. The 1.5-inch hose saw a 3% decrease using the Dust Deputy, while the 1.25-inch hose saw none. This all equates to a shop vac average decrease of 7% and the dust extractor average decrease of only 2.3%. So what does it all mean? The shop vac alongside our Dust Deputy saw the least amount of loss at our 2.5-inch hose size, while the dust extractor alongside the Dust Deputy was our highest performer at our 1.5-inch size. Rounding out the field, the dust extractor with the Dust Deputy saw its overall highest performance at the 1.25-inch hose size. So as you can see here, using any cyclone is going to result in some loss of CFM, but the cyclone and the dust collector that you do use make a big difference.
So as you can see, the numbers vary quite a bit between the different types of cyclones that you have in the shop. I would say that the Dust Deputy was our clear winner for having consistent airflow throughout all of our testing. Our dust extractor seems to perform a little bit better with our smaller drum sizes and our smaller hoses than our shop vac. However, the shop vac does work well for certain circumstances. One of the great things about dust extractors is they have auto on-off. When you're using tools like the router or the miter saw or circular saw, dust extractor can turn on and off with that equipment. Plus they have the HEPA filters, and they're a lot quieter than the shop vac. Again, I'm no doctor, I'm no scientist, but I know that dust is not good for us as woodworkers. So if you're looking for a dust solution in a small shop, I would recommend checking out the Dust Deputy 2.5. It's also going to prolong the life of your filters, and you won't have to change out the bags as often as well. If you have any questions or any insight or any of your own conclusions, go ahead and drop them down in the comments. For me, a dust extractor in combination with the Dust Deputy is what I will be using in the shop from here moving forward. But I'm happy to hear what your thoughts are. But if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like this, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Check out this video over here next, and I'll see you next time.